So in this video we're going to have a look at the M42, the Great Orion Nebula, and how to process it and bring out the core and hopefully bring out some of the dark dust lanes that are quite often hidden away and get forgotten and ignored. So hopefully you'll find this helpful. So the first thing I'm going to do is apply a stretch on the image. So this is about 2 hours of total integration. So the first thing I notice, or two things I notice, is that the fact the image has been dithered. We can tell that by the black line and the pixelation down the bottom, which is great. A fantastic way of removing noise. And the second, there's quite a bit of gradient when you compare the left side to the right side. So the first thing I'm going to do is going to deal with the dithering issue. I'm going to do a dynamic crop. I'm just going to bring that in. There we go. Apply that. That'll then remove all the mess around the edges. And now we want to have a look at this gradient. So I'm going to use the dynamic background extraction tool. So I'm just going to change a couple of the settings. I find these work well for me, but in this case trial and error. And I'm going to click generate. Now you can apply extra points, which I'm going to do, sample points. So I'm going to zoom in. Because the gradient is quite noticeable on the left, I'm going to apply more points on the left than I am on the right. So if we look at here, we can tell that we are on an area which is a good sample. If I was to click here, for example, not a good sample because we've now got a star. So as long as I've got no black spots there, we know that we're doing okay. You can put as many as you like in, as few as you like. You can, but just get see, because the gradient's quite noticeable on the left, which is the reason why I'm doing this, because the gradient I want to get rid of is, funnily enough, on the left. So just do it quickly, otherwise I could be here all day. It does work, and it does the work really well. Nearly done. Just whack a few more in here. And the difference should be quite noticeable when we apply that. So I'm just going to apply subtraction, and you can also replace the image by clicking on discard background model and replace, but I was just going to show you the difference, so I'm going to click on that. Now we've got two images. This one here is the background model. This shows the gradient that we have removed. You can see there's quite a gradient there. And then if I click on this one, hopefully we'll see that we've removed that gradient, and all of a sudden a lot of the finer dust details are now visible. So we don't need that one, the original. We're going to start working on this one. So I'm going to do a background neutralization. I'm just going to use an automatic approach to this one. Just drag and drop. It takes a few seconds to run through. There we go. Apply the stretch again. Sometimes it's not noticeable. It can be very, very subtle. Again, I'm going to do color calibration. You can let it do its thing automatically. And I'm going to run SCNR. It might not be noticeable to you, but there is a bit of a green tinge to the image, so I'm just going to drop that on there. Yep, there we go, lovely. I don't know if you've noticed it, but it certainly made a difference to me. So what I'm now going to do is going to use the Easy Processing Suite and use the denoise. I think it's a fantastic tool. It's free to download. So if you haven't got it, make sure you do. It's quite straightforward to add on. The instructions to do so are all on the relevant website. Just Google the easy script for pixinsight and you'll find it. And then we're just going to load the image up. Should automatically select. If not, you might want to just choose it from here and then click run. I'm not going to do that because I've already denoised an image, which is this one. So I'm now going to load that up, and you can see straight away, well, I can anyway, it's a lot smoother. So now we're going to do the histogram transformation. So turn the switch off, the stretch, sorry, and then load up histogram transformation, click the reset button, load to preview. I click the tick here, and then that gives us a little graph that we can work with, which can be quite helpful. So just going to drag it along. I do it in gradual steps. I don't try and do it all in one go. And then reset it, and then start again. It's a gradual process. So you can see that it's starting to come to life. As I reset after every stretch, I'll probably just take it up to here. Now we can see that the core is becoming overexposed now. We're losing a lot of the detail. The trapezium is hidden in here, and I know for a fact we can see it. So what I'm going to do is going to take that off for a minute, minimize that, and I'm going to use range selection. Click the preview button, and I'm just going to get a preview, something like that. Turn the smoothness right up, and then create the mask. Get rid of the preview, and then we're going to apply the mask. So at the moment, the red areas are the areas that we're protecting. So any adjustments will be affecting this, which is not what we want. So we're going to invert the mask. Now we're protecting these areas and not the dark areas. So I turn show mask off and load the transformation up again. Transformation, histogram transformation. Reset that, and now we're going to start clipping the blacks. Now hopefully if we start doing this, you'll see that we're not now affecting the running man or the M42. So we can be quite subtle with that. So yeah, small changes are better than doing them all in one go. So happy with that. And I'm just going to click back. Happy with that again. So it's all about your personal preference. Just trial and error sometimes. A bit more. So when you get to nearly getting to where you want, it's just subtle changes, fine adjustments. There we go. Might just have a quick look. Yeah, that's looking good. So just going to reset that again. So we go too far and it looks a bit rubbish. So there we go. I think that's looking good. You can apply the mask too early, and then so you might want to take the mask off, go back a setting, do another stretch, and then do another mask. So I'm going to leave that mask on for a moment, but I'm going to invert it because I want to do something with the colors with the nebula. So I'm going to put it back to what it was. Mask, show mask, and then I'm going to go to use the MLT tool, the Multiscale linear transform. I'm going to select chrominance. I'm changing my layers to 8. I'm not going to do anything with layers 1, 2, 3, and 4, but on levels layers 5 to 8, I'm just going to change that to 0.1, 0.1, 0.5, and 0.5 again. So sometimes it works on certain images, sometimes it doesn't. You might just want to remove the layer or adjust the settings, but hopefully it will add a lot more colour So there we go. So we've got a bit of redness out, and I think on the Running Man we've brought out a bit of the blue as well. So if I take that off, a bit duller, there we go. I think it's a subtle change, but it's a nice change. So now I'm going to remove my mask, and the next thing we're going to do now is we want to try and bring out the core. So I'm going to go to range selection again, click preview, reset it, and then we're going to run the mask until we what I find, if I get this like a C shape, I know that I'm pretty much where I want to be. And I'm just going to apply the smoothness, create the mask, get rid of that, minimize that for the moment, and then we'll apply the mask. I'll show you with the mask on. So what we're doing now, we're only working on these two areas here. So I'm just going to just show the mask, and now we're going to go use HDR, Multiscale Transform. So I'm going to click 2 lightness and 2 lightness mask. So this is going to be a bit of trial and error as well. I'm going to start off with 8 layers and drag and drop. And what this should do, well, hopefully, there we go, is brought out the core. Oh, we have the triangulum, not the triangulum, the trapezium. So we've got the 4 stars there, which are quite well visible. So again, trial and error. You might find, depending on your setup, you might need to go less. But if I'll show the difference if we go less. It's worked well, but I don't particularly like that. I just think it's a bit too harsh. So I'll put it back up to 7. There we go. Yep, I personally like that. It's all again, it's personal preference. So if you think it's a bit harsh, you might want to try 8 or 9 layers, but I think that works quite well. So I'm going to get rid of the main mask. So we've now got a nice core. We've got a lot of the dust and dark nebula starting to show. So we could do a bit more denoise, which I might do in a moment. First of all, I'm going to try and bring out a bit more detail. So I'm going to use range selection again, create a new mask, and we're just going to do the whole area in general of the nebula, run the smoothness up, create the mask. Now I do 2 lots of these with 2 different masks. So I apply this mask, LHE, local histogram equalization, load preview. So that's the automatic settings, which I think looks quite hideous. So I drop it right back, and then I just mess around and find a setting I like. I quite like the 160 mark. So I close that preview and apply that. Okay, the changes it makes is very subtle. So I zoom in. Just adds a little bit more depth, and then what I do again is I'll take that mask off, which I've done. I'm going to create another mask. I'm just going to go right to around about sort of that mark there. It's a tiny little mask which is only going to affect really small amounts. Apply that. What we can do is we can do a preview, potentially to drag a preview, and then you can apply it, but I prefer to see it as a whole. Wrong tool. So So again, that's with the automatic settings. If I drop them right back, you can see the difference there between the two. And again, I'll probably go around about the sort of similar sort of 160 mark. There we go. The difference is subtle, but it does add a bit more clarity to the trapezium. Got it right that time. And what we can do is add in a bit more sharpness to that. But first of all, I'm going to apply a bit more denoise. So I can use the Multiscale linear tool, transform tool for this. So I'm going to select it to luminance. These are my settings. So the noise reduction, threshold 3.5, irritations 3, and then I just do the same thing on 2, 3 and 4, just adjusting them accordingly, and then run that. Drag and drop if you want. Bit of a slower process, but it does work well. And that smooths it up lovely. Right, so I'm going to add a bit of sharpness now because it's quite not out of focus, but we can get a lot more detail. So we can use the Multiscale linear transfer tool, and then I select layers 2 and 3, and in this case I'm going to actually add a third one on with a small adjustment, which I can take off if I want. So all I'm doing is leaving everything, start at transfer tool, layers 2, 3 and 4 RGB, and then drag and drop, and this brings out the sharpness, something fantastic sometimes. So it didn't work very well because I've been an idiot and left the mask on, so let's take off the mask that we were using, and this will now be a lot better. There we go. So again, take the sharpness tool off and add it back on again. It does make quite a difference. So again, sort of full screen, you can see how it's quite soft. It does sharpen stars. You could always add a star mask on if you wanted to reduce the effect of the stars getting brighter, but I quite like that effect. Again, just showing without the sharpness tool and with. I mean, what I quite often do is I'll do a star reduction run, and then when you apply the sharpness tool that I've just done, it brings the stars back up to the original level, so it's always worth looking at that. So happy with that. What I'll do now is we'll go back into Histogram. No, we won't. We'll go into curve transformation. So it's important not to clip the black pixels away, because then you'll lose a lot of the detail. A lot of people go too far with the clipping and they lose a lot of detail. So here you can just fine tune. So I might just drop the black clip level a bit, and then drop that, bring that up. Yeah, not working so well. So it's just a case of a lot of trial and error, finding what suits you. But that's a quick run through on how to bring out the core and the dark dust lanes of M42. I would probably suggest doing a star mask if you're going to do the, or a star reduction if you're going to do the sharpening, because I think it does bring the stars out a little bit too much. But I'll do another video on star masking at another point. But you could, before you start doing all your HDR, go into script, and then you've got star reduction tool, which I do use the add-in blocks, the emphasis method. It's very subtle, doesn't make a huge difference, but it is a subtle difference. The other option that's there is a bit too aggressive, I find. It doesn't look quite right. So use the add-in blocks, the emphasis method, run that. Takes a little while to do, but it does work really, really well. So you might want to do that before you sort of start going with it, after you've done your stretch basically. Turned it into non-linear. So I hope you find that helpful. feel free to get in touch if you've got any questions.